Hear it?
I heard it. Yeah.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to the 2021 HTCIA Canada Cyber Summit. Thanks for joining for our last session of the 2021 meeting here today, where we have past, present, and future HTCIA presidents who are sharing digital forensics and cyber investigation techniques and tools. There are decades of experience on this panel here today, so we're excited to get started. A couple of housekeeping reminders. Please type your questions and comments in the chat in the Ask a Question box. This will be really a panel sort of discussion, so we do encourage you to be active there in the chat in the Ask a Question box. And then following this presentation, we do have an last email scheduled to go out at 4 p.m. That has the eval link. That evaluation link was also in the email this morning as well. We promise your number of emails will be going down after today. But please do fill out that summit evaluation. We really utilize a lot of that feedback in order to plan HTCIA's programming and content. So it's super helpful to hear back from you about what worked and what we can do better. And with that, I will hand it over to Peter Howlett, who's the president of the HTCIA Atlantic Canada chapter and a summit committee member, and he will be introducing our panel. Thanks again for joining.
Thanks, Libby. Appreciate that. Yeah, we have the three stooges here on our panel. excellent guys, and wonderful people to know. But I'll just give you a little brief rundown on each one. Starting, I think on our left, on our right, if you have their windows side by side, is Tony. Tony has 20 years of experience providing consulting services to various organizations ranging from Fortune 500 companies to U.S. government entities. He specializes in data security related to ITAR, EAR, DFARS, and Controlled Unclassified Information. Anthony assists organizations in understanding and achieving regulatory compliance with standards like the draft Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, CMMC, DAFARS, right, 7012, that's a NIST standard, 800-171, and other regulations imposed on the defense industrial base and the Department of Defense supply chain. So Tony's been around the block, and so welcome to Tony. Todd also is our current president of HTCIA International, is also an American cybersecurity expert, and he is a former cyber crime senior detective sergeant and a USAF combat vet. He currently speaks and trains globally regarding technology investigations and the dark net. So Todd, welcome. Glad you're here. Finally, Brant is a former sergeant in charge of the Vancouver Police Department, VPD, the technology crime unit there, in particular, digital forensics and financial crime. Brant's the first vice president of HTCIA International and is currently employed as a compliance officer with the Real Estate Council of British Columbia. So welcome, Brant. I'm glad you guys could all make it. And with that, I will turn it over to the panel.
Thanks, Peter. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be moderating today, and you know what? We're going to have a lively discussion, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. You know, pre-COVID life, COVID life, and you know where we were before, where we were during, and hopefully where we're going to be. You know, when we finish this journey of ours. So, Libby, if you could give me control in terms of the presentation, that would be great.
Yep, just hover your mouse over your own video and then click the share screen button, the little laptop with the arrow.
Beautiful. Getting there.
It's technology.
Oh, it's beautiful technology.
Post-COVID world.
Yeah, no delays here, of course, right? Loading. All right. As you can see, we're going to talk about pre-COVID world first. And Todd, you're up. Tell us what you were doing pre-COVID. Tell us what your regular day was like. Tell us about your tendencies, trends, and techniques. Please and thank you.
Well, pre-COVID, things are really, really good. I had just left one company and went to work for myself as a sole proprietorship. I had been wanting for a number of years to scale down some of the things I was doing in respect to my workload. I'm getting towards the end of my career, and I wanted to change some things because one of the things I love to do was train and teach law enforcement about technology and techniques to be able to go out and catch the bad guys. So I developed obviously some expertise over the years. Tony and I met 25 years ago. Tony doing the DOJ, NIJ manuals. So we've been doing, online investigations and digital forensic investigations for a long, long time. So I thought, I want to change what I'm doing, and it would be a great time to go. Left this one company, started another company to be able to do this training. I had already been doing it. I just wanted to do it full time and not have to worry about the other things. So the start of the year, I started off with a bang for me in 2020. I had already traveled 100,000 miles the previous year around the world, training law enforcement, working on projects from Interpol to the Canadian Police College, where I've been training for a number of years. And so this was just going to be my life now. I was going to travel and train. And it started out pretty good until obviously COVID hit, which I was supposed to have been in France that weekend when the whole thing shut down. And so my life immediately changed. I went from having a really good plan of where I was going to go, scheduled in-person trainings around, the world, the projects with the Interpol and other groups about, darknet specifically, because that's what I've been doing recently. And things were great. So things were happening for me. And so developing new techniques, developing new training, all those things was just going really well. And then slam, everything stops.
Okay.
So that was my pre-pandemic. It was like going very well.
Okay, I got to stop you there, Tony. Tell us about the pre-pandemic world. What were you up to? Who were you working for? Who were you working with?
So pre-pandemic, most of you may or may not know. I started my career in cybersecurity long before I was a police officer, and I had taken a bunch of courses in college and programming, and then eventually I became a detective in the computer crimes unit. That's where I met Todd actually during that time. And then after that, I did what a lot of people sometimes tend to do when they leave the police department. Is I went ahead and I created my own company. I decided I didn't want to work for a large organization anymore. I wanted to be able to work at my pace, at my time. And then, I got bored. And then I wound up working for a very large accounting firm and was doing great at, a little shift from the digital forensic side. And it was more like IT security risk assessments. I became an auditor working on national security compliance for foreign companies that bought U.S. companies. And it was going great. Basically, I was, doing these audits, traveling all over, going all over the country, and even, overseas to do the work. Unfortunately, when the pandemic hit, the investment by foreign companies into the U.S. pretty much came to a halt. So nobody wanted to spend money. Everything was uncertain. People were getting laid off. And so eventually my practice where I was at slimmed down. So I found myself in the middle of a career change during the pandemic. But with the skill set that I had learned from HTCIA and all the different trainings and also the networking that went on, within like 2 months, my unemployment was really short-lived. I was a little disappointed. But then I found myself back right now. I'm a cyber director and the head of digital forensics for a firm out of Chicago. And, I found myself like trying to start up and run a practice, during the pandemic and then change all the techniques and technologies around it. But, I say that, yeah, my transition before the pandemic was great, and even during, even though there was a small hiccup in between.
Yeah. You know what? I think everybody transitioned, Tony, and, we're survivors. If we're here, we're survivors, right? I can tell you about, my transition. I was a sergeant in financial crime. I had moved from digital forensics to financial crime, so I was talking about J-tagging one day, ISP, celebrate, gray shift one day. Then the next day it's like, okay, let's talk about our year-long investigations and update you on how we're doing by 11 people in financial crime. Started to deal with I2 in terms of programs, started to, hopefully bring some technology to them to, make it easier for their world. And I came into a situation that needed some help. But I had a fantastic crew. I was in investigations again instead of investigational support with cyber and digital forensics. I was actually, managing investigations again. So I was very, very happy. But, in the back of my mind, I knew I had a date in mind in terms of retirement, and that, COVID didn't change that for me. I kept my date, right? So, May of 2020, I retired, and I had something in the back of my mind. I had a couple job opportunities, but nothing set. And probably the best thing I did, and again, part of the plan, and sometimes plans work out, is I took 6 months off. And, which is scary too, as you know, like feeling like you're unemployed, right? You're drawn on a pension, which isn't a bad thing, but feeling like, okay, what am I going to do here? But, the honey-do list was long, and did a ton around the house, relaxed, just let everything go, of course, concentrated on HTCIA stuff to keep the brain going. And an opportunity arose for me in September of 2020. And I joined the Real Estate Council as an investigator. And I love doing investigations. I love being around a team. And that, that is really the thing I miss. Even in a virtual world, I think not being around a team every day and talking to people about different things, and doing the Zoom call or the Microsoft Teams call or the WebEx call to talk to somebody about a technique or a trend, it just doesn't feel the same to me. I'm a in-your-face type person, and I love that communication, and I love the exchange of information in a team setting. So that that's the biggest change for me. Doing online stuff, Todd, you did it, Tony, you did it for years in terms of training and investigation. So that, that wasn't anything new. What was new was everybody else was joining online. And so, I thought it was, COVID impacted me like everybody else. And, there's been some terrible side effects to that. In a working life, it, drove me to actually work from home, which is never a bad thing. And I don't know how that change is going to happen. If we're ever going to go back to those situations, let's hope so. Let's hope we can take care of this thing and move forward. But for now, I think we're all in that survival mode. We're still in it, and how we adapt to it is changing. Slowly but surely. And you gotta be adaptable. You have to. And I found, even within myself, the first thing I did was, okay, let's build a resume. Let's start all over. Let's throw yourself out there. And I had a couple of HTCIA connections before I retired, and they paid off. And, I was offered a position I was interested in. But anyways, enough about me. Let's talk about your pandemic work response. I know we touched on that a little bit. But Todd, can you just tell us really what changed for you, and actually what habits you picked up and what old habits you relied on, if possible? Thanks.
Sure. Thanks, Brent. Well, like I said, everything crashed for me because I was traveling, I was doing in-person stuff. So the immediate change, like you said, we've all done online stuff before, and we all had to shift immediately, and that's what I had to do too. And look for, opportunities where I could, change what I was doing. And that was, I think, the biggest thing is what could I do differently, utilizing what I was already doing. And that was the biggest change, because most of, like I said, everything I'd been doing was in person. How you're looking somebody in the eye and being able to give them instruction. Doing it now online is very different. And I ended up doing some of it, but not as much of that. What I ended up doing, as you had mentioned earlier, and Tony did too, is those contacts through HTCIA helped me change the kinds of things that I was doing. And so I ended up very quickly rolling into, because of those contacts, some authoring work on material for Homeland Security, for training material. And that worked into a much longer project that is, kept me through COVID very well. So what ended up happening was, it was just not being frustrated by the fact that things had changed and we had this new working environment. It's how do I adapt to it? Now, I had been working at home for some time anyway, because when I wasn't traveling, it was doing class preparation, before I went out. And so I had, some concept of doing work from home. But the biggest new thing for me was all the time being here 24/7 and not leaving like we all did. And so that was, developing how do I work in that environment now, because I didn't have the deadlines I had before, because I always had a deadline. I got a class coming up, so I got to prepare for this and do these things. And so it was now getting up. What do I do? How do I, run my life now that I know I'm not going to go anyplace? And that was hard in some respects, because I had always just been preparing to go someplace, and now I'm not. So, the new thing for me was,
did you get that look one day, like, oh my God, you're here still?
Yeah, exactly. Why are you? You used to go away. But yeah, no, that's a interesting problem too that we all had to develop and work with. How do you work with your spouses when you're there 24/7? A whole nother impact. And so now having the separate workspace was very important for that. Being able to, in my house, go downstairs, lock myself in a room, be able to do what I was doing, preparation for those things, and research, because I spent a lot of time doing research. And so the new techniques were dealing with being home constantly, and how do I develop that into a positive work environment for myself.
Okay. Did you had to change platforms or anything like that, Todd? Did you have to actually adapt new equipment in terms of your working environment when we went into pandemic mode, basically?
Well, yeah, we did. I had to end up investing in some other things that I wouldn't have done otherwise. New cameras, new computers, those things, so I could set up a more robust, not like I don't have enough computers in my own house, but some more robust response to some of the things I was doing, particularly with virtualization and how we're doing that, dealing with, how the technology has changed, with some of what I was doing. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Tony, how about yourself in terms of just the pure pandemic response and in the workplace for you?
Yeah, well, trying to stay away from the refrigerator when I'm working out in the kitchen is really
we're not going to do a pre-test and a post-test in terms of weight, are we?
No, we're not. Although the camera is making it look bigger than the refrigerator food. Okay,
it always puts 15 pounds on you, buddy. You're good.
Yeah. So I mean, for me as a practitioner, so it was a dramatic change for me. First and foremost, the courts were closed. So court cases were coming in and breaches were still going up. So the need to transition that, basically, I can tell you, it started off in my office, and now I've got 2 rooms, and now I'm working in the dining room. So it just, the equipment coming in, the hardware coming in, a lot of having people send, devices to me, or if not, doing a lot of remote acquisition. And even so, I won't mention the product because I use multiple products and I don't want to put one over the other, but I found a particular forensic product that had a monthly subscription fee. And so I would buy the monthly subscription fee and put it on a laptop, and then ship the laptop out with the hardware write blocker. And now, because of the training classes that I've been to and being a trainer myself, from here in HTCIA, literally I'm walking IT people through the process on how to help me, make an acquisition of the device, and almost like the Da Vinci robot. If you think I'm sitting here saying, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, and troubleshooting remotely, remote desktoping into the network, and then connecting over to the laptop. I would tell you there was a lot more live acquisitions. And I was prepared to defend them because the pandemic wasn't allowing you to go on site and grab these machines. The businesses are not going to send you their server, nor would I take it anyway. And so it came about, basically the dramatic change was going completely virtual, being able to send the laptop out, send the hardware right blockers out along with the equipment. So trying to scope the job and make sure that I was sending the right equipment, make sure that I was sending the drives, and then working them through it when I needed to. And then once the device was connected to my laptop, then I could drive from there. But the flexibility of having the license was really, really important because that allowed me to do a monthly subscription and expand or collapse as needed. So that was a great help to find that particular pricing plan. In addition, now you're talking about data. You're talking about changing data back and forth. So I needed to make sure that all my platforms were online and upheld multiple standards, whether ISO, HIPAA, NIST. So if I'm working in the cloud, I'm either using, GovHigh or some sort of advanced cloud features that basically have certified and been certified in different data protection standards. So, and if it doesn't have it, I'm not using it because I don't want the liability. Here I am working from home and, sending stuff up to the cloud. So again, making sure that my Wi-Fi and my networks are secure at home to make sure that the data that I have here is protected. So that's a whole nother animal. And if you're not set up for that, and I wasn't, I was pseudo set up for it, but to make sure that I got all of that in place was really, really important. And then lastly, the liability of sending equipment. So the reason why I moved to sending a laptop out to do previews was because I had one person, it was an employee misconduct case. They sent the laptop to the house and, we're looking for employment behavior. Long and behold, we come across child pornography. So now it's like, ooh, what do I do? Right? I shut it down, right? I contact their local police department. Their police department gets a warrant. They get the prosecutors involved. And now I've got the data. And so the prosecutor says, send the data back to me. And I'm like, I'm not going to put it in FedEx. So now I have to figure out a policy with the local police department, the state police to get that data back. Clearly, purge everything from all the systems. But the saddest part is that the place of occurrence was actually at my house
This is not good, Tony. This is not good.
When you fill out the police report, they ask you where did you find it? So immediately that was the cause for me to change everything. So nothing came to me personally if it wasn't pre-scanned. I didn't want to ship anything across state international lines. So
how did you get that pre-scanning done? Did you make sure it was done on their end of things, or
yeah. So that was the reason for sending the hard drives with the right blockers, because in that case now I've got an image. I tell them to connect the image to the computer. I remote desktop in, and now I start looking, right? I'm looking for anything before I send that image or they ship that image to me so I could do my forensic analysis. So I do a preliminary triage. And if there's anything on there that I don't like, I say, you leave it there and call the cops and let them pick it up from you. So
that's an incredible adaptation there, Tony. I got to tell you, we're so used to as forensics people actually going on site and doing stuff, right? And best case scenario, you go on site, and you bring it back to a lab, right? So Total change in mindset. Sounds like you became a bit of a teacher again in terms of forensics.
Pretty
right?
much. Pretty
Yeah,
much.
for
And
sure.
like I said, you've got to think about the ramifications. If you're doing this work from home, you've got to make sure that if you're doing document sharing, you're producing documents for the law firm or the company, you've got to make sure you have secure transport and secure systems to do that in. And then more importantly, to protect yourself, you don't want to make the mistake of telling them, send a device, and then you wind up in a scenario like I had. So really important to think the process through. And it was a learning process, right? It happened overnight, and we're just trying to get up and running. So I won't make that mistake again.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I love to hear that story there, Tony, because I think it's so 2021, right? It's so let's move past the pandemic. Let's move on. Let's do something else, and let's get better at what we're doing, and adapt, overcome. And that's just the way to do it from a business sense too, right? So awesome to hear. All right, so now we got to think about the overall, and what was old, what's new, and what are now your best practices, and how does that change over time? Todd, if you want to take this on first.
Sure, because I had separated myself now into training functions and gone from doing forensics all the time, which I still do some, but doing the training, one of the biggest things I learned, transitioning to an online training concept, the stuff I was teaching about online investigations, the darknet investigations, don't always translate well to that online environment. And so it was learning different ways to impart what I was trying to teach to an online student. The other part of that is,
how did you actually do that?
I found out through trial and error that, doing some of this stuff, it's like the students they can see what you're doing, obviously, because you're screen sharing, but you can't see when the student doesn't understand something. And so you start moving through material, and then all of a sudden you find out that they're still back on step 1 and you're on step 5. And so it's a different environment about how to deal with students in that environment. And so I had to rethink how I presented in that environment a lot, and the material, how I presented it, because it was keeping the students engaged and keeping them up with the material when you're teaching technical material. So it was a very different process for me, and I've rethought a lot of how I present material just in general based on this. So for me, it turned out really good in a lot of respects, because I did change some things I had historically done in teaching to a better method. So it worked out, good for me in that respect. But one of the students have a difficult time in this environment doing live stuff. It's one thing to sit here like everybody's doing now and listening to us present, but actually trying to teach somebody to go, okay, do this step, do this next. It's a very different online process, and you have to rethink how you do that if you're doing technical teaching through this kind of WebEx, webinar kind of system.
So you said you made some changes, some subtle changes. Can you just talk about maybe one or two of those for us? Like, were you having, did you do like a multiple viewing where you could see all the students, or did you have responses coming in from the students, like on the side, like we sort of have on our panel here, or what did you do?
Well, yes to both of those. Both of those things work, but it's still hard to, from a little, picture, understand what's going on in a student's mind. And you can't go back to their computer screen as easily and know that they're not keeping up with you. So, one of the things I had to do is stop and go, okay, where are we at? Does everybody understand this? So there's a lot more time I have to build into ensuring the students know where they're at. And that was a big change for how I was doing it, because I could walk around the classroom and see where everybody was at and make sure they were up to speed, and stop at that moment, bring them up to speed, and then get back to the class. It's harder to do in this environment when you're teaching online and changing, what you do, because, I do hands-on stuff, not just lecture. Lecture's easy, you just talk about it. But if you're trying to do something hands-on, this environment is very, very different how you pin it. And then building the class stuff I've been doing for Homeland Security, I've had to do that, keep that in mind too, that how they present the material is going to be different, whether it's online or, you know, in the class, how they present it and what the material is. So I learned a lot in that respect about how to be a better teacher.
Good. Yeah. Awesome. Tony, what are you thinking in terms of some of your new practices versus some of the things that you used to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, like for instance, on the audit side, normally we would do a physical security check. We would, check the server rooms, make sure they're locked, check the systems, the fire suppression systems. So like now we're using people walking around with an iPad or a phone to take those pictures going room to room and saying turn left, turn right. So there's a lot more virtual contact than before, and a lot more note taking, especially when you're doing incident response, because now that I'm logging in remotely to a network and I'm performing functions, normally you get a drive, you make a duplicate image, and then you go ahead and you start your analysis. But now, making sure that I've tracked my digital fingerprint on the machine, the server, and working with people, it becomes more challenging, right? Because you've got to make sure, like, what's the name of the person that helped me make this image? What was the time we started? So those times are going to be absolutely critical when you're doing those kind of digital forensics investigation. The same thing with incident response. So you want to make sure you have everything that you can. So I had one case where they sent me the virtual machine. They sent me an OS and a data side for it. And, I'm going through the data. I'm looking for this breach. And I realized there's no registry keys in the VM. And I'm like, why are there no registry keys in the VM? And they set it up in a way where the registry keys were on a separate VM. So all the VMs kind of shared the same registry. So not being able, and I spent a lot of time looking for the registry key. I'm like, oh my God, did I miss it? Like, I know I didn't miss it. It didn't change in that fast, right? And so, being able to account for the evidence and making sure what you got, because, it's a big production to get a team together over there and walk through them and have them image it. So the inconvenience to go back and say, hey, we missed something, you've got to go back. So check became important, and really detailed experience. The previous lecture, they talked about IT versus forensics. Well, it's actually multiple skill sets. It's not just IT and forensics or knowing the OS. It's also managing relationships, because I'm not there with the people. I'm not talking to them. I'm trying to explain to them, all right, that 35 gigabytes of data that you put in, up in the cloud, in the secure cloud, is going to take time for me to download it. So the expectations for production of data gets moved out farther, right? Because, in the past, you tell it, listen, you send me a drive and I'll put it in a couple of hours, or the next day I've got it indexed, I've got it processed. In this case, I had one other case where it took 18 hours to download 45 gigs, and I've got a pretty fast network. The problem is just, the bandwidth issues trying to bring that thing down from the cloud, and I wasn't on Wi-Fi. So, and then of course, for those of you that try that, if you have large family and kids that are playing PlayStation, Xbox, streaming videos and Netflix and all that, they just saturate the network. So I've had to come up with a schedule where it's like, hey, at this time of day, everybody's off because I'm downloading data. So a lot of changes.
Yeah, you know what? I'm competing against 3 people in my house right now. My wife, who has been working from her own home office for 15 years. So she's got seniority in terms of our system. And then it's the 2 university kids, right? And God knows they love to game in, outside of actually doing lectures and stuff. But both are working now. So we've partially booted them out of the house. They still come back for dinner. But what I found moving online, just doing investigations online remotely, was the digital distractions, right? And I was standing in front of a computer at work anyways, and talking to the odd person that would come up, the odd investigator, and giving them advice and stuff like that. But I just find that doing pure investigations online, it's sort of like that squirrel response from the dog, right? The email pops in or something like that, or a message from a team member pops in. Whereas they used to sit at a desk and you talk to them maybe once or twice a day. Now everybody's messaging each other. There's a lot of digital distraction, and I go old school, as you said, Tony. I've got my electronic notes for sure, but then I have my handwritten notebook, right? And I can tell you I'm still doing an Excel of what I'm doing all day, right? Because that's required in the position that I'm in. But I still like to go back to my notebook, and I think that's a good old habit, right? Versus just taking electronic notes, because of the amount of digital distractions that are involved in our purely digital working life these days, right? So.
Yeah, notifications should be turned off when you're doing.
Oh, I know. It's more than notifications. People should be turned off. They have instant access to you through messaging now, right?
Yeah,
when you're working in a team environment. So, interesting times. But I think good times. I love the fact that I'm able to, work from home. I think it's a great lifestyle change. No commuting, no screaming at people in other cars that can't hear me. Right, just simple things like that make you happy now. So moving on, we think about our participation in this organization. I know we all got a love for it, and we think about where it was, past, prior pandemic, what we did during the pandemic, and what do you see a vision of after the pandemic? And I'll just let Todd respond to that. In terms of HTCI, and you can talk relationships, you can talk about where we want to be, where we should be, where we're going, whatever you want, Todd. Thanks.
Well, I think what we have to go back to pre-COVID and post-COVID immediately. One of the things that happened last year was this summit was supposed to be a live conference. And one of the things as an organization, I had been pushing for a number of years, and Tony will know because I bugged him all the time about we need to do more webinars, we need to do more GoToMeeting at the time. We have to have those accounts, we got to do that kind of stuff. We got to get our members pushed to doing some online stuff. And so we had those accounts, we had that little bit of expertise going into COVID. And so when the conference was canceled live, and we had to shift to a virtual conference, we were actually pretty well pre-positioned to be able to do it fairly effectively. And we had a great staff, the team of people behind the conference, a lot of the same people that are running this one, were able to shift gears and make it work very well, very effectively, and very quickly for that. So I think that's one of the advantages of having the background we'll have, that we're able to do that, and we already had a lot of that available. Now, to tie into that, we've got a learning management system that we've got with our current system. And those things are all making it easier for chapters to do training online, because they can view the material that's there. And obviously our new conference, the international, went virtual last year, but we're going to have a hybrid kind of conference this year where parts is going to be virtual and parts of it will be, live in Phoenix. So please plan to be in Phoenix. Those that can attend it. But, we've changed things. And now what's coming out that I announced at the beginning of the week is our participation in the certification program with the National White Collar Crime Center. That's going to change, I think, a lot about how people look at what HTCIA is and what we offer, because there'll be so much more for them through their membership. So a lot of things have culminated that we've been able to capitalize during the COVID, crisis.
Okay. Tony, from your experiences.
Yeah.
Please.
So training, extremely important. I mean, I can't emphasize that enough. And this organization is great for that. I mean, one of the other things is, when I'm doing dark web investigations, making sure that I have a virtual machine up, making sure I have an anonymizer running to protect my own home network. So I wouldn't have learned that had I not attended a bunch of the trainings here. And, remembering to shut the VPN off when I'm trying to log in to the corporate network and I have an IP address from Mexico or Germany, so, and I get the call from IT, like, where are you? So the training is really, really important. It's something we've emphasized for a long time at HTCIA. And certification, I'm glad that we're moving forward with that. I mean, that helps us make sure that we solidify and validate the stuff that we teach, the tools, the technologies, and the type of cases. So it's really important that we have a professional level of experience and tool sets that we can demonstrate to people. So certification is great. The training is awesome. And then one of the more important things, I think Greg is on here. I saw him message earlier, is the networking. I mean, right now I'm relying heavily on the people that I've worked with and met through HTCIA. I mean, Greg and I, early when I moved to this new company, Greg reached out to me, and he's up in Canada, and we had something going on in New York, and we worked together. Right now I'm looking at a contact in Miami to image a cell phone for me. The networking is utterly, utterly important. I had someone do a collection out in California, and the only reason why I'm going with these individuals is because I know that they've been trained. I know that they're members of HTCIA, and I know that they know their craft. As opposed, and I know them as a person, right? That's where the networking comes into play. Because I had subcontracted one case to somebody outside, and the guy goes, "Yeah, I know how to take the image," and then he calls me up, and he actually logged into the user's account to do the image, and I'm like, why would you do that? Why didn't you log in with the admin account? So, I mean, that's when I was like, I'm going to focus on my network. I'm going to continue growing my network and using people that I know have the standards, have gone to the training, and that I can network with on a regular basis, because you don't really know what somebody's work is like until you've spent time with them and got to see their work product. So training, networking, absolutely important, especially now. I can tell you that as far as online trainings, my CE requirements are through the roof. I think I had like 150 last year, and I only needed like 25 to get keep all my certifications. So from a training perspective, online
it's going to be
awesome.
I think it's absolutely valuable. Kudos to Todd in terms of just relationships. It's funny, we had a call with NW3C, and Jim Emerson pops on the call. Well, I've met Jim Emerson. I presented with him in Vancouver. Didn't even know he was associated to that organization. So I'm really happy that we're going down the certification line now, and they're going to offer some things that are just going to be fantastic for our people. Training is the key here. It's value for the experience. You got to have value. We used to get that at the chapter level. We'd meet together at the conference level once a year or twice a year, just depending on where it was. Now we need every chapter to move virtually here, and it's not a big ask. We're doing it anyways. 80% of people are working virtual that I know. So I think an important step again is we're thinking about mobility in terms of having a mobile site and having an app, having an application. We're moving into that area. When we link our learning management system into the certification, it's just going to make it so much easier for people. But again, we got to make it available for mobiles for people. So I think we're moving in the right direction. But we were already there, as Todd. As you said, we're already there. We were ready for it. So it wasn't a big change for us. Having a hybrid conference this year down in Phoenix is going to be a challenge. But again, it just offers the ability, if you can't travel, at least you can come, right? It's not that same feeling. It's not that face-to-face, Tony. It's not us grabbing a drink together and chatting about things, but we will get there in time, right? We'll get there through vaccination. So I think, we're getting pretty close to our time here. I'm going to tell one good story about HTCIA, and then I'm going to let you guys chime in. When I was during my 6 months of God-sent retirement, I got an offer from one of our compatriots who's on the presentation here tonight. He's actually in the audience. And what I was able to do for him was say, hey, you know what? I may have a local offering, which I did, and it turned out well, but I know somebody for you, right? And boom, within a week, he'd hired that person. Again, that's all about networking. It's all about knowing somebody in the HTCIA network. I think it's a great relationship going forward. So that's what I'm happy about. And that happened during COVID. So I was very, very happy about that. But yeah, Todd, that's my HTCIA story to take away. I think it's a good one during COVID. How about yourself? Just in terms of connection, Todd.
Oh, I think connections are everything. That's why HTCIA is so valuable.
Yeah.
You may get not happy with your chapter because they're not doing as much as you want, or whatnot. But it's the people you meet in this organization. Both of you. And hundreds of other people all around the world that I've made contact with through that ability. When you talk about it, this is a hugely old example for me. Was a child predator case I was working, and during when we could trace IPs and things in the late 90s, I had an IP address and went back to someplace in London. And so I literally called up a friend that I had met and still lifelong friends with, who was working for the Metropolitan Police in London, and said, hey, can you go check out this address? Because we got stuff coming back, to this address of this, IP. And sure enough, they ended up arresting a guy and, solved my case, and it's done because I had met somebody internationally, you can't value of those relationships that you can build to solve cases and help, do things that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Perfect. Yeah. Tony, we'll end it on you. Just a little example.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, throughout my career, I've been blessed to, be part of HTCIA. Not only has it helped me in my career, it's helped me in relationships and friendships that have lasted many, many, many years. When somebody tells me that they're a member of HTCIA, my antennas go up and I welcome them as if they were my friend forever. Because I know that there's a level of trust, there's a level of knowledge there that you don't see often, especially when it comes to, and it's not just digital forensics, whether it's OSINT work, whether it's risk and auditing work. I mean, we have such a broad base, academics here. It's just amazing the kind of help that you can get by just going to the listservs and putting a question down and getting the answers. And it's really, if you haven't had a chance to use the membership portal, you really should. There's jobs postings there. There's selling of hardware, people that are retiring and they have personal equipment they want to get rid of. And, it's really good to have that information and in one place, especially for our tradecraft. A lot of people don't understand our language. When you say that one of the cases I was on, the defense side kept saying hash value and algorithm and hash value and algorithm. And the judge says, I don't want to hear about hash value. I don't want to hear about algorithm. I want Mr. McAllister in the living room with the candlestick, plain and simple language.
Perfect.
So that's really it. Really take advantage of all that the membership has to offer and really take advantage of the trainings. When I first got on HTCIA, there wasn't a training I didn't take, any opportunity to learn something new to further my career. And it's been really successful, to be able to have traveled all over the world and do all types of and work with all type of agencies, and some of them super high profile cases. I would have never learned those things or how to do them had I not been a member of HTCIA. So.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I want to thank you guys personally today, Todd and Tony. It's a pleasure. This is long overdue, I think. But let's make sure that we can do it in a room together with some libations next time. And I know that Libby's
Hopefully.
looking at me in terms of time here. So we only went 5 minutes over. That's not bad, you know, because this could
No,
have,
it's the perfect segue. It's the perfect
Yeah.
segue for the final housekeeping announcements,
Yeah.
which are if you were a non-member who signed up for this conference, it did include a membership, an annual membership for the year. We do still need you to put a membership application in, and so we'll be reaching out directly. You'll get an email from Gabby on our staff, Gabrielle, and she will give you the specific instructions with the code to put in. You'll be able to select your own chapter. We also have an at-large chapter, which is basically like access to everything. And that was included with your membership fee. There are also a bunch of upcoming events in May. We have a webinar that's open to members and non-members on May 21st at 2 p.m., along with a couple of chapter events next week that are open just to HTCIA members. And I'm going to put in one final plug as well for the summit evaluation. That's how we develop the content for everyone that is on the line here, and it's how we recruit speakers. So please do fill out the evaluation so that we can do some content planning for the rest of 2021. And as a final thank you for participating here as well, you're also going to get a promo code to take $25 off your HTCI International Conference registration. So either your online or your in-person access to that conference. That meeting is going to be the end of September in Phoenix, and details are online at htciaconference.org. So we hope to see you there in person. And thanks again, Todd, Brant, and Tony, for your time this afternoon, and to our other speakers and sponsors of this meeting. Any final thoughts from anyone before we close out the 2021 Cyber Summit?
See you in person in 2022. That's what I got to say. Take care. Thank you guys so much.
See you in person, hopefully, in
Yeah.
Phoenix.
I'm going to see you in Phoenix.
Canadians can't travel down there. You know how it is.
That'd be
Take care, guys.
All right. Take care. See
All
you
right.
soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
here.